So this is the current rumor running rampant online in the Mortal Kombat community. Apparently, any plans for a Kombat Pack 3 or potentially a story expansion have been canceled. Now, the person who is alleging that it's canceled, they're saying, look, we might get 1 or 2 more cameos, but plans for a Kombat Pack 3 as well as a story expansion are gone. That's not happening. And the person asked, well, why is that? And they said, Chaos Reigns sold poorly. I want to take a moment to not really try to justify the rumor or try to prove whether it's false or not, but to analyze both sides of the argument and see how it could be true, but how it's likely false. Now, one thing I know for sure is a lot of players were upset by the pricing around this DLC expansion. For $49.99, you get access to 6 characters, 3 Mortal Kombat characters, as well as 3 guest characters, and an expansion to the overall story mode. Now, $49.99 is a lot of money, and depending on what era you grew up in, and depending on what you're used to paying for video games, $50 for content is a little ridiculous because it's so close to the price of a full game. And so there was a lot of conversation about how this was essentially overpriced. So going back to the original rumor, it could be that this DLC sold poorly because players simply opted out of paying $50 for an expansion of a game. There's always been, since the launch of Mortal Kombat 1, there's always been some tension around the product that we paid for versus how long it took for it to get to the place where it currently is. And essentially that's what this account is saying. To be fair, a lot of people did say MK1 Chaos Reigns was overpriced, including the players and review outlets. But also, the game is getting better and better, which is true. The quality of life updates have really made this game a lot of fun to play. And I've covered this before. It's so obvious this game was rushed. And so could it be that all of this together forced players to just not want to participate? They didn't want to purchase this content, and thereby Chaos Reigns sales tanked. And then the powers that be decided they didn't want to move forward with Mortal Kombat 1 content. However, I find it hard to believe that Warner Brothers would scrap any content plans for a game that's doing very well when they have clunkers. And this article kind of proves that, Warner Brothers games to double down on Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, in particular Batman, after a string of flops. And everyone knows that's one of those flops was Suicide Squad. And Mortal Kombat is not Suicide Squad. Every time NRS has created and released a Mortal Kombat game, it has sold. It has generated revenue for the company. And at the end of the day, it's all about business and what's making money, in particular with David Zaslav, because he is the reason why Mortal Kombat was launched in the way that it was. It was clearly launched ahead of time. If you look at all the clues, that game was not ready to be launched, but David Zaslav is trying to sell Warner Brothers. And so, he wanted to generate as much revenue as possible, and he knew Mortal Kombat would sell. If you look deeper into the article, after admitting its video games business is substantially underperforming its potential right now, Warner Brothers has said it's planned to double down on 4 key titles. Okay? And that's because Rocksteady's Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, tanked, right? Apparently Multiversus is not doing well. And so they've decided that the franchises that are going to make the most money are Hogwarts Legacy, and that's despite the controversy with J.K. Rowling. That game sold and did really well. Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and DC, and Batman in particular. And so going back to the original rumor, I just find it hard to believe that after Warner Brothers has been hemorrhaging, right? According to this article, they've been hemorrhaging money in the game division, They have to invest their funds into franchises that are going to generate money. And so this idea that Chaos Reign sold poorly, I would have to see the numbers. And I think potentially it's a little bit too early for that. But if Warner Brothers is willing to put their backing behind 4 key titles and one of them is Mortal Kombat, you're going to tell me that they canceled a potential story expansion and Kombat Pack 3 because Chaos Reign sold poorly? I think you'd have to prove that. And so until we get some kind of official word from Warner Brothers or NetherRealm Studios that future content from Mortal Kombat 1 is in danger, I think that this is just a rumor. You're going to see a lot of this. As someone who has played and followed NRS and Mortal Kombat for a long time, whenever there's a dissatisfaction with content that was released, there's always a lot of conversations about which characters should have been and who's not here versus who's here. I'm guilty of that too. I do a lot of that on my pages. And so you're going to see a lot of talk about this character is coming, this character is confirmed over the next year. Because the other thing is, honestly, Sector, Cyrex, and Noob Saibot are not really exciting. I think they told a compelling story, or at least they attempted to tell a compelling story, but those are not some of the more popular characters in the Mortal Kombat franchise. And there are a lot that have not appeared on this roster yet that are being bandied around. And so I think for now, this is just a rumor that's being fueled by dissatisfaction with the content that we received, but not necessarily not wanting content anymore, just not liking the characters that we got. And so this is probably just a rumor.